He spent more time in courtrooms than perhaps any presidential candidate or former president in American history. Erin Moriarty explains how, in some ways, it's not just Donald Trump who's on trial. It's the very nature of our nation's judicial system.
On March 25th, inside room 1530 of this Manhattan courthouse, a trial unlike any other is scheduled to begin. A criminal trial of a former U.S. president, Donald J. Trump.
We've never been in a situation like this where we've been faced with the prospect of holding a former leader to account.
What does that mean for the balance of power?
Melissa Murray teaches constitutional law at the New York University School of Law. Andrew Weissmann teaches criminal procedure there.
Well, I do think that if you think about American history, there's sort of defining moments. There's the actual promulgation of the Constitution. There's the Civil War. And I think, without the hyperbole, I do think this is a defining moment in terms of having a criminal case.
To be clear, Donald Trump is no stranger to the legal system, and recent civil judgments may cost him nearly $500 million. But what makes this a defining moment, say Weissmann and Murray, is that he is facing 91 criminal charges in 4 different courtrooms. In New York, in the so-called hush money case, Trump is accused of falsifying business records. In Washington, D.C. and Georgia, for allegedly conspiring to overturn the 2020 election. And in Florida, for keeping classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago property. And what's at stake now for Donald Trump is not just his finances, but possibly his freedom.
The fact that we have these 4 indictments show that there is an appetite for accountability, but is he too much for the American legal system? I think that's what we're going to find out.
Because overshadowing this tangle of trials is the fact that defendant Trump is also candidate Trump.
I think the country is going to rue the day that we ever traveled down this road.
Robert Ray, a former federal prosecutor, successfully defended Trump when he first faced impeachment in late 2019.
What federal prosecutors want is they want the public to come to accept that the defendant was afforded fairness. I think that there's a good percentage of the country right now that doesn't believe that.
And that is why Professors Weissmann and Murray put together what they say is an impartial guide to the Trump indictments.
There are facts that are disputed in 4 criminal cases, and our job is to translate that for people, hopefully, who really will understand that they need to get engaged.
They begin not with the New York case, but the one they believe levels the most serious charges, United States of America versus Donald Trump, being heard in Washington, D.C.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States.
Last August, Jack Smith, the special counsel appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland, charged Trump with conspiring with others to interfere with the results of the 2020 presidential election.
The sort of gist of it is that you have a plot to disrupt the counting of the votes.
Smith alleges Donald Trump knowingly made false statements about election results in states like Georgia, and according to court filings, cites as evidence Trump's own social media posts, like this one falsely accusing Democrats of stuffing ballot boxes. Smith also alleges the defendant lied to the Georgia Secretary of State to induce him to alter Georgia's vote count in that now famous telephone call on January 2nd, 2021.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
But former Trump attorney Robert Ray says a jury may hear that phone call differently.
Finding votes doesn't necessarily mean find me 11,000 fraudulent votes.
And adds that Donald Trump will argue he was exercising his right to free speech. Attorney Weissmann counters.
I was a prosecutor for many years. There's no First Amendment protection in terms of a criminal case If you were to rob a bank and say, give me all your money, that's speech. None of that is protected.
My office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens.
But that speedy trial that was scheduled to begin in a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. tomorrow ran into a roadblock earlier this year after Trump's lawyers made a claim that echoed one made by another former president 50 years ago.
When the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. By definition. Exactly.
Donald Trump asserts he's protected from prosecution by presidential immunity. While that claim was initially thrown out by a federal appeals court, Trump asked the Supreme Court to weigh in. And in a win for Trump, just this past week, the justices agreed to hear arguments on the case in April.
So even a case that's built for speed can be derailed by delays.
Yes.
Doesn't that kind of reflect one of the limitations of the American system, these delays?
Donald Trump once wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. This is the art of delay, and he's played it very well.
There's no question that it is desirable politically for Donald Trump to delay these cases until after the election, for obvious reasons. He's entitled to take that position.
It's a strategy that presidential historian Douglas Brinkley says that Trump learned from controversial attorney Roy Cohn, chief counsel to Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s, and who represented the Trump Organization in the 1970s.
What Trump has going for him is that he learned how to stall and defer and postpone, kick the can. But more than that, he learned never admit defeat.
But as much as they have tried, Donald Trump's lawyers have not been able to delay or dismiss this case, the people of the state of New York against Donald Trump.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime.
Last year, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg alleged that Donald Trump had falsified records to conceal a bigger crime, election fraud.
The defendant claimed that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. This simply was not true.
Instead, Bragg says the hush money went to pay Stephanie Clifford, an adult film star better known as Stormy Daniels, to buy her silence about an alleged affair with Trump before the 2016 election. While some legal observers question the strength of the case, Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, was convicted of similar charges in 2018 and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Jurors chosen for Trump's trial will likely remain anonymous, and no cameras will be allowed inside the courtroom. What's more, unlike his previous civil trials, Donald Trump will be required to be in here instead of on the campaign trail.
This is about defending his rights, him showing up in court and being able to mount a vigorous defense to the charges against him. That's his right as a defendant.
That won't keep him from holding court outside, as he did after a recent hearing.
Nobody's ever seen anything like it in this country. It's a disgrace.
Is he going to try to use this case as part of his campaign message?
Of course he will. He has done that with regard to every other stage of these prosecutions. Why would the trial be any different?
Manhattan DA Bragg has already asked the judge to rein Trump in with a partial gag order. But Ray blames the prosecutors for taking a candidate to trial just months before a presidential election.
Are you saying that former leaders should never, when they're running for re-election, ever be held accountable for alleged crimes?
No. But I'm saying that the unusual circumstance that we find ourselves in is that we've got 4 pending indictments in an election cycle. That is a result that I think most people would agree is undesirable.
But Bob, he gets to bring in his evidence, he gets to cross-examine witnesses, and he could be acquitted. And that would that would help him in an election year.
I think there are questions about whether or not Donald Trump can get a fair trial in the District of Columbia, as there are whether or not he can get a fair trial in Manhattan, given the potential juries.
I've watched them deliberate. They take it very seriously.
But Professor Murray is confident that juries made up of American citizens are more than up to the task.
I think very few jurors go into there like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and I think they go in there like, I'm a juror and I'm an American and this is my civic duty.